that can be met by an employee who is dependable, hardworking, enthusiastic, motivated, cooperative, respectful, and punctual. Conroe Independent School District Special Education Department can meet your needs by connecting you with potential employees that have been preparing for a lifetime of employment. We have numerous individuals seeking paid and unpaid work experiences. If your company is interested in seeing how we can meet your business needs, call Conroe ISD Special Education Department to find the best employees for you at 936-709-7671.
Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe, and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and I'm Rick Schisler. I'm your host. I'm a Silver Fox advisor, as well as being the founder of OneBestConsult.com. Well, first, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. If you're listening live or on a recording, I appreciate it. It's great to have people listen to what you have to say, if you know what I mean. So we've got a lot to say here today. We've got a wonderful guest to talk about their life's journey in business and all the different things they've done, plus some real good observations. And we're going to talk about networking. That's one of the top 5 things we talk about on the show. It seems to find its way into many conversations. Acquiring new business has got to be, I guess, the main business of any business owner, is where are you going to get the sales. The production of it, delivery of it, that only can happen when you have the business. We're broadcasting live today from the studios of Lone Star Community Radio, which is located downtown Conroe, Texas, Montgomery County. Lone Star is a nonprofit, and we're volunteers here who do the shows locally. I encourage you to check out Lone Star. It's got a lot of good programming, especially if you live in the Montgomery County area. A lot of good people and a lot of good information. Plus, they have a lot of fun on these shows, and we like to have a little bit of fun on this show, but we're talking about business, right? But put your smile on it today so you can smile with us as we have this conversation. Lone Star Community Radio. Check it out on the web. It's very simple, irlonestar.com. That's irlonestar.com. I think you'll find something interesting. They have an app, so you can listen to it on your mobile, anywhere you go in the world, basically. A quick thought. The last several weeks we've been talking about what's happening, well, I guess you could say what is happening or not happening, or do we know, in Washington, as far as the business world is concerned. A lot of activity, a lot of information, a lot to digest. And as small business people, it's been my experience in 50 plus years of being in business and mentoring people and advising them, consulting with them. Small business people don't typically do a very good job of staying in touch with what's happening in the world, particularly things that might impact you. You may be at the bottom of the food chain, so to speak, but things do dribble down. And it's a good thing to spend a little bit of time listening, getting information from various news sources, the radio, the television, wherever you like to plug in. My question today for the folks in Washington is sort of an extension. We have it, it's almost like we're building this big wave, and I just hope it doesn't crash on us, but do you believe we're heading for a recession? That's where the conversation is reached at this point, kind of a natural progression based on all the things we've seen over the last 6-8 weeks. What do you need to do to prepare? You need to ask yourself that question if, in fact, a recession comes, a business slowdown. And I'm not going to take time today to define a recession. We've done that before. But what do you need to do to prepare if suddenly your business slows down? And I recognize if it slows down 5-10%, that's one thing. If it slows down 50%, that's a horse of a different color. And I get it. But take a little bit of time. And if you've got any information filed away about business slowdown, some people actually write up a little plan and then they just keep it. And then when something like that does happen, they pull it out. And obviously, if you own and operate a business long enough, you're going to see one or two or even more slowdowns, depending on how long you've been in business. So first thing I do, though, is check your cash reserves. Make sure you got cash. So if business slows down, you're not caught in a pinch and have to risk your business. I see that all too often. In small business, we're always a little tight on cash for the most part. But take a look where you are, and if you need to be, start socking some money away. It's that simple. Your AR, wow. I've been through this personally in a business I owned. With AR, time slowed down, and our largest customer ultimately ended up in bankruptcy. And, they owed us a lot of money. Eventually, we collected 90% of it, but it stretched out over 2 years. And that had a huge impact on our cash flow. So look at your AR. If you got some people hanging out there in the over 90 or over 60, kind of press the case. See if you can collect that money because you need that cash. And finally, what will your market actually look like with a recession? There's a little bit of that magic globe we all have somewhere behind our desk, and we look at it and run our hands over it maybe. You're projecting. If you've been through a recession or a slow period, you got an idea what it feels and looks like. Always a little different, but you got a basic idea. But what would your market look like today, now that your business is here today? This is not 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Things have changed, but take a few minutes, close the door, cut off the phone, or go for a drive, however you do your thinking, and think about, and I would commit to paper, what you think the business will look like if it starts to slow down. So you can set some markers, some boundaries, so if this happens, then you will have something to look at and say, hey, I need to react, or I need to do this, or we need to do that. Because when you get jammed up in a hurry, then you end up doing things that make no sense, such as laying good people off. I mean, if you have to, you have to. But really, my father always told me when he'd read about these giant layoffs at big companies, 10,000, 20,000 people, he says they don't know what they're doing running their business. They absolutely don't know what they're doing. And he was very critical of the CEO and leadership of whatever those Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies were. So you can do that in your own business. We all know how hard it is to find a good person, and you want to keep them unless things just get really, really bad. So please consider the thought, are we heading into recession? Spend a little bit of time thinking about it and maybe just sketching out some things that you would do. And if you can, set some benchmarks. It's always good to have that down so your emotions don't play as big a part when that happens. You can say, well, when I got to this point, I need to do this. And but I think we can. No, you need to do that. You need to do it. I did it once with a business I was in, and at the third year, I did not meet my goals. I was short on revenue, et cetera, and that made me kick back from the desk and think about, do I want to go another year, or do I want to move on to something else? Because there's always opportunities, and it worked for me. It didn't tell me to leave. It told me to take a good, hard look, and I did, and I felt a solid decision to move on. Well, the big part of the show is our guest, and today we're blessed to have somebody who's had a lot of business experience and actually runs a large networking group. Monica Fuss, Arbonne independent consultant, wellness coach, and sailor. Now, maybe we need to start with the sailor part and kind of get that out of the way. So you're a sailor, Monica. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rick. It's great to be here. And yes, I used to be a sailboat racer. I had a catamaran, and I raced all over the Midwest and the Gulf, and in the Atlantic.
So oh boy, if you travel like that, that's quite a dedication to a sport.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but yes, it was a lot of fun. A lot of out of my comfort zone experiences.
Were you a solo?
I had a crew.
Okay.
I had a 16-foot catamaran, which means it's a two-person boat. And because I'm a lightweight, I had to have somebody that was a little bit bigger than me so we could make minimum weight requirements. And sometimes I actually had to put weights, like from the workout, I had to tie on weights to make my minimum weight requirement because they didn't want me to have an advantage in the light wind days.
You know, that's amazing. I never would have thought about that. That's kind of like car racing, where you know, the weight of the car and all this, and all kinds. Horse racing, the weight of the jockey. That's interesting. I never thought about that in catamaran racing. I actually have known somebody in my lifetime that did racing, but very local, just the Gulf Coast. But he loved it, and it was catamarans. But I don't know. You taught me more today than I knew before, so that's good.
Oh, wow.
Let's check off Sailor, and let's back up. Then let's talk about Arbonne, because that's what you do on a daily basis. It seems to be that your commitment is there. Talk to us about why you do Arbonne.
Why I do Arbonne is being able to help people achieve their wellness goals. And with the Arbonne products, they're clean and plant-based. They're beauty and nutrition products. And I'm passionate about helping those people with a healthy lifestyle and empowering them.
So you're playing into the all-natural type of environment that we're finding ourselves with food and health and drugs and all exercise, and well, there's a big push on right now. I mean,
my
across
goodness!
the board.
I'm so glad that the U.S. is finally getting on board with us, because Arbonne's been in business for 46 years, and they were clean and green before that was even a thing.
And you make a point, the U.S., and that's something we sometimes overlook in business, because my impression is like Europe in general is a step or two or whatever you want to say and argue about ahead as far as the food quality, if you will.
Oh, yes.
And other things in products, certain pharmaceuticals. I mean, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal this past week about Xanax. It was a full-page article, more, I guess, and it zeroed in on several people that had experiences in taking Xanax and how hard it was to get off, and the way the doctors mishandled it, typically being prescribed by general practitioners, not psychiatrists or whatever. And it was interesting. It was scary to read through that. And based on the numbers and studies, you say, what the hell brought us here to have a drug, any drug or whatever, or food? Why did we ignore all the warning signs over a period of years?
Oh, yeah.
So
what gets me is like the food system, just in the food system, if you just look at that one tiny piece, is how many of the food companies, they have a different version that they sell to Europe versus what they sell here in the United States.
And see, I don't think the average person knows that.
The average person does, and
I mean, they just blow it off. And I
yeah.
put myself in that category. I read a lot for business and try to understand trends and things that are what's going on, so I can consult and mentor people. But this food and health and however, I don't know what you call it, is a conglomerate of our wellness, basically, right? Which we're going to get to that. Monica's a wellness coach too, so you're plugged in on wellness all the way around.
And my family hates it because I'm on their case all the time. I'm kind of the food Nazi at our house, or have been, and so I've tried to back off now. I was like, okay, we're gonna get in the grandma mode here. Let's back off a little bit and do a lot more of the nurturing part.
Well, I was going to say, being a grandmother, though, at least my personal experience.
You've been a grandma?
Well, with two grandmothers, one of who spent a lot of time with me. My father claimed she kidnapped me from time to time.
Okay.
And kept me for a few days at a time, which I did spend. We had a family business, so it was kind of a cooperative of raising the kids and the help from the other members of the family. But that aside, grandmas are supposed to be there to spoil you, right? I mean, that's their traditional role. I mean, they give you the candy, and for kids, so you're going in and say, nope, can't have that. Got to have this 0% yogurt
That's been a tough one for me because I have been so strict on trying to do better and better and better of getting what me and my family consume and what we put on our body. That now with the grandkids, yeah, I've got that on one side. You know, kind of like the little characters on each side of our shoulder. One says, you know,
Yes.
eat the candy, give the kids the candy, and the other one says, no, give them something healthy. And my daughter's telling me if it's healthy, they'll spit it out. I think
Well,
she's
that's not
taught them
necessarily
that.
true.
But yes, I have been able to find ways to kind of find a medium where it's not so bad and it's something that's still that they'll like.
You know, it's interesting on a personal note, the transition to wellness, which I'm personally going through right now after being really sick for a while. I mean, it's taken me too long to wake up to it. I should have 20, 30 years ago, because I do spend time looking at the whole person related to owning a business, running a business, being available to perform at a high level every day. But anyway, the long and short, literally in the last year or so, I've begun to address and study and try to understand these issues and then adjust. And just this morning, when I went and got I think we have 2% Faggi yogurt with my blueberries and banana, which I love. I love it. Now, I do put a little bit of artificial sweetener on it, and that's supposedly kind of a no-no in some corners, but it's not that much, half a bag or something. But anyway, my point being is that's part of who I am now. I made that adjustment. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, yogurt for breakfast that doesn't have sugar in it. I mean, I liked yogurt, but it came with the fruit and all that stuff, and it's horrible if you pay attention to the labels and kind of read up on it. So and I looked in that ice box, I put the yogurt back, and I saw one of these nice big red apples that I've been eating on a regular basis, and I said, boy, we got apples. So when I come home today, I'm going to get that apple, and then there was some cut up watermelon and some pineapple and stuff, all of which directly helped my situation. I said, boy, you're lucky. I did, to myself, and shut the door. Because I wasn't going to worry about coming home and finding potato chips and all the other sandwich for lunch, you know. No, that wasn't going to be what we're going to have. And I felt good about it. And I really do think it's helped me feel better and get healthier.
That's great.
So, but that's a wellness journey, right?
It is a journey. Now, none of us, myself included for sure, none of us actually achieve wellness. I have not met a wellness coach yet that's 100% doing everything right. We're all human. We all have weaknesses. We all have our little thing that is like we don't tell anybody about. We keep stashed away, you know, our little treat, you know, it's like that we get from time to time. But none of us, we're all human, and we're all broken in that sense.
Well, I think that's one of the hardest barriers, and I'm absolutely guilty of this. I want to be 100%. Or I'm disappointed, I'm upset, I talk to myself. That's part of my character. Mm-hmm. I'm the hardest on myself, always have been, and that's bad.
Me too.
And so it defeats you if you let it.
It can.
And so I just decided if I eat the yogurt or if I eat the fruit, whatever, and if I do that, that's a success. And if something else falls through or whatever, just let it go and keep. So out of, what is it they say generally, 6 weeks, develop a new habit. Then now I'm looking at the fruit and say, wow, I got a big old juicy apple, which I never really enjoyed apples that much, you know, but it's changing. But it wasn't, I didn't push myself. Yeah. And I have to have everything on the daily nutrition chart checked off. And it made a huge difference, at least for me. And I know that doesn't work for everybody, but it's good stuff. So if 50% of your day is healthy and the other 50%, just keep working at it. But don't shoot for 100%. That's my theory.
Well, that's a great place to start, 50%. I coach people with the goal of 80-20. Just kind of the rounded numbers. You know, it sounds good, but at least it's tilted more toward the let's do one baby step closer toward that 80% each day. And as we do that each day or each week, however long it takes us to do it, then slowly we become more and more, our taste buds actually change, and they become, like you said, that red apple looks wonderful now, a big juicy apple, yummy, where before you looked at it like, oh great, an apple. You know, it has a lot to do with what's going on in our head.
It's all inside your head, she said. Simon and Garfunkel. Remember that song? That phrase stayed in my mind all these years. But then that's true. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I will admit, Saturday night, my wife and I, for a date, if you will, we just get in the car and drive somewhere. That's a date, you know. And we went and got some ice cream at Sonic. And I said, gosh, how long's it been? 4, 5, 6 weeks? Now, it used to be weekly.
Oh, my.
But
So it's
now,
progress.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, we sat and talked, which is what we always did. And,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I'm not 100%. I don't need to be 100% because I can see the changes that are happening to me. So it's no doubt about it. Well, Monica, we're at a point we need to take a little commercial break.
Okay.
So we're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you'll stay with us. And we're going to continue the conversation from a business perspective of being a representative, such as Monica is for Arbonne, and give you a little bit of the pluses and minuses of doing that. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
A Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
Have a legal question? Are you a resident of Montgomery County? Call 281-645-6344 to talk to a volunteer attorney from the Woodlands Bar Association. We answer the phones on the first Monday of every month at 281-645-6344 from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. to provide general legal information and information about legal resources to Montgomery County residents.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You've been listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and we're having a wonderful conversation, at least in my book, with Monica Fuss. She's an Arbonne representative. She's a sailor. We talked about that first, didn't we? And a wellness coach. And she also is a leader of one of the largest networking groups, Alignable, I guess, as a whole. The networking group is probably one of the biggest of that type of networking in the country, I would assume.
They are all over the U.S. and Canada, and I know the group that's in San Antonio. It's a really good sized group as well, and so I've heard of other groups that are doing really well. Because Alignable started out as an online networking, and they just a couple of years ago started in-person networking, and I volunteered to lead a group in person here in Conroe, and that's been growing because people are more and more, especially after 2020, have been craving in-person networking versus online. Online's handy, don't have the travel time, but in person, there's just nothing beats it.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I don't remember how I bumped into Alignable several years ago. Networking, it's interesting to me as someone who has been involved in a number of networking groups. In fact, some years ago, I engaged a coach that guided me for 3 months of how to get the most, be effective in networking. She did a wonderful job. I mean, her perspectives helped me. And, of course, I got to go out and join different groups and evaluate them as far as what I was looking for or what I needed in my business. At that time, I was a practicing attorney, but I was new. Even though I was old, I was new to that profession or that job. But it taught me a lot about networking. So Alignable to me is still online in a sense that you get information, you get an email every day or two, and the events, they're national events that are Zoom related. But it's also a quick way to connect with people. In my case, currently, I'm looking for people like yourself that are smart people to invite them on this show. So when somebody joins Alignable in the area, I look at their profile, and if it's something that seems viable to me and would relate, I send them out a general invitation. And I've had some wonderful people that I didn't know till they came here to be on the show. Might have talked on the phone, but that's my purpose, is to connect with people like that. And in some cases, I still do a number of referrals, not like I used to, but that's another thing, to be able to provide quality people if somebody asks you for a referral of a certain trade or product, service, and whatnot.
Yeah, Alignable as a platform is 90% or more online, and there's 10% or less of it is in person with the alliances, and they have several groups, kind of like Facebook has groups. They're only their alliance groups are ones that if it's named an alliance of whatever, it's a group that meets in person. And right now, online, our Alliance of North Houston has like 3,100 members in it. But the number of people that actually show up to the in-person meetings, we have anywhere from 10 to 30, 40 people show up. One of our first ones that Robert hosted, they had like 150 people at that one. It was like, oh my gosh, but that's because he provided free food, and we're not supposed to do that. So anybody's going to show up for food, right?
I guess
Especially
so.
small business owners that barely have time for lunch.
Yeah, they can do some networking. Well, I think it's the concept so far that Alignables developed works, again, for me, because networking groups like BMI and all these groups, they take time.
Oh, yes.
And the group itself does, not the networking, but just, and I've tried those, and in particularly what I'm doing now, I can go to a meeting, but it's the same people. So they've all been invited there, so it depends what your objective is, what industry you're in. But Alignable to me is a great second or third group. If you have some primary group that really fits with what you need, you can do Alignable. Because it is online, and there's such a wide variety of people and so on and so forth out there, and it just doesn't take all that time because you're typically sitting behind a desk, right, on Zoom. But you can show up, and I've found the couple in-persons that I've been to, it's an interesting group of people, different than other networking groups, but not so much consistent, the same people every time.
That, to me, is a downside when we don't have the consistency, but at the same time, there is the plus side of getting to meet new people. I lost my thought. Sorry, go back to you.
Just be careful. I do that more often than you do, I suspect. Well, but it's interesting, and I think, again, it's back to the old, toolbox that we have as business people. We need to connect somehow, network, even if we don't particularly need to connect our product or service through networking. Okay, say we sell internationally, but to find a group that can give you just the camaraderie to talk about business issues, hiring, whatever it might be. We use roundtables for that. I currently mentor 2 roundtables here in the Conroe area.
Really?
We're connected to the Conroe Chamber.
Okay.
And one of them's nonprofit, one of them's for-profit. So that's where people can come and a confidential atmosphere, share their issues.
Awesome.
It's so funny, the nonprofits even talk about their boards because they basically don't have another outlet.
Right.
But they're seeking advice how to better the communications or whatever. It's not just, throwing down on people and criticizing them. We're looking for solutions to strengthen their business.
And that's what we try to do in our in-person networking meetings. We try to not only just go around the room and everybody does their little commercial, but we want to be able to provide something that's of value, some sort of a business topic. Sometimes we do a mastermind in the one that I facilitate. And one thing I did remember what I was going to say a minute ago was in our groups, in our in-person groups, it's been amazing to me how many collaborations there have been, and there's been really big business deals made by a couple of our members, and then there's a lot of smaller deals, not quite as the international size, but they're really big deals as well. And even the small ones. I mean, every sale to a small business is a big deal, right?
That's right. And that's the reason that I assume a vast majority of people network, because
Yes.
they're looking for direct business,
Yes,
either referral
Yes,
or
definitely.
directly from the individual.
definitely.
And like I said, I look for referral sources that I can refer people to. And that's one of the neat things about doing a show is I get a chance to evaluate somebody, because I've always, as long as I can remember, have had referrals, quality people typically who I've used and aware of. And I've always found that a very important part of my business plan of developing a business is being able to be, oh, Rick, do you know somebody who do this? Or, and they depend on you and you
Oh,
get a
yeah.
reputation and it helps strengthen what you're doing. But that's been my personal tool or use of networking for the most part. So it's really kind of interesting.
I call that being a connector, and that's kind of, as I've gotten into networking about 10 years ago, that's what I saw, and that was my goal, to be a connector, be the go-to person. Is like, hey, Monica, who does this? Or I need somebody that does that. It's like, oh, I've got 1 or 2 people, or here's 3 or 4 people that do that business. Here, check them out.
Yeah. See, I think if you're, as you call it, a connector, that's, again, not everybody wants to be a connector. A lot of people want to be direct business. They're looking for the sale. And I get that. That to me is the main level in networking. But there are other things that you can get from networking. I think the alignable business plan, as I understand it, is good. And again, it works for me because of what I want out of it. And I think it would work for anybody as maybe a second or third networking choice. Because a lot of people like a BMI, but they're getting education, they're getting other things, and there's a number of those type of groups, and that's cool. Got to meet every week, it's kind of a drag for some of us, but you hopefully build a real close relationship from being in those kind of groups, the chance to do that. So it's real interesting. One thing before we move on to our next topic, that the lady who I took some coaching from networking, she told me one of the things she taught me was to have 2 groups you're involved in at least, maybe 3 at most, but plan to leave the group after about 1 year. Because at that point, and she supplied data to back it up, you've exhausted everyone in the group if you've worked it and done it right as far as potential referrals. And when you leave the group, you should leave with 3 or 4, maybe 5 people who you have an ongoing relationship with. But you don't need to devote your time to that group. You need to go find another group.
That's a
and
good point.
Start doing it. I mean, she was remarkable.
Wow.
I mean, it was really, I learned a lot about effective networking.
I need to talk about that later.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Well, let's kind of go back to Arbonne. Arbonne is geared, and correct me if I'm wrong, to people like yourself. This is my take on it. You work by yourself. You're a solo, independent rep. There are literally hundreds of thousands of independent reps in America for all kinds of products and services. So what is the big attraction about, one, being an independent rep versus starting a business and getting a storefront and hiring some folks and the other traditional way of doing business? What is the attraction in general? And then specifically, what is the attraction of Arbonne, particularly as a good
Wow.
business?
That's a big question. So to start out with, any kind of network marketing company versus the difference of being an affiliate marketing company to being in a network marketing company, it is a low-cost franchise, if you will. With a franchise, you get systems, you get back office support, you have a way of doing things when you just pay your fee, which is a low-cost fee in network marketing in general, then you've got a team behind you already. Where if you're doing it on your own and you're having to come up with the plans, you're having to come up with the systems as well as the employees, who's going to work the system, And the franchise costs that I've seen, it's like, well, let's take the high dollar ones. It's like, what does it cost to start a McDonald's franchise? It's pretty big number. Or any other big franchise, say, a GNC nutrition franchise. It's a pretty big chunk. But if you could do it for low cost, why not? And so that's where the small business mindset comes into play, is that we're in business for ourselves, but not by ourselves, by having that kind of a franchise kind of atmosphere to it. And specifically with Arbonne, it is definitely less than $100 to become a consultant nowadays. And with that, you get a website, you get all the back office, you get the product research and product production and product distribution. I mean, all of that, that's a lot of cost that they're maintaining, and I got that all for under $100. I got the website, and I'm in business. All I need is a couple of business cards to take with me at networking groups, and maybe you only need one if you do one of those little online things, where you just, tap your phones,
Right.
Do a handshake with that. So, it's all about, I can focus on the people part of it. I can focus on whoever I'm talking to, like talking to you. I can talk about what's going on with your life and talking about your journey and what are you missing, and do I have a possible solution for that, fill in that gap, whether it has to do with my products or whether it doesn't, because as a wellness coach, I can help with some of those pieces.
Well, you make a good point, because I've had a number of people on the show over the years that did franchising. And when you ask them, okay, what was the attraction? Why? And typically they come from a corporate environment. They want to be their own boss. And what attracts them is exactly what you say. It's that I get someone behind me, the back office. I get, of course, the advertising, the general marketing, and so on and so forth. So I can invest my time in making sales, and I can depend, hopefully. So when people look at franchises, it's the evaluation of the back end or whatever the franchise, very, very important. There's no doubt about it. And I can see some people, I'm sure not you, well, the $100, that's nothing. I can risk $100. They do it for the cost versus, like you say, the extraordinary cost to open a McDonald's. What's $500,000 you got to have or something.
That's a bunch.
Plus go on a note to pay for the building, whatever, I guess. But the independent, you got a trial period if you're only investing $100 or a few $100. So I can see that a lot of people, and I suspect independent reps, there's quite a turnover because people try it for the $100 for a month, 6 months, and then if it doesn't work, then they can move on to the next idea.
So may I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you say it doesn't work, what are you saying?
It doesn't work for the individual,
Meaning?
the rep. Start where I typically work with people on going into business. When I sit down and talk to someone who's approached me and says, I want to start a business, and I want to do it, and I said, okay, I'll give you an hour of my time, no charge, no nothing. We just sit down and talk. And I try to evaluate who they are, particularly. A lot of people don't spend time on that issue, and whether that they fit in that business. In a fit, meaning, say, if you're going to have a lot of customers, then you've got to embrace people and customer service. Some people aren't really cut out for that. They just want to work in the back room. So,
Or they just want to be an order taker.
right, and that's. I mean, you just
Yeah.
keep moving across the spectrum, and this, I would assume, again, you got $100 entry. There are those I would assume that are, and I've known some, that's what attracts them. It's not the product. It's not first and foremost. It's, well, I can get in if it doesn't work. So in my mind, they're already defeated because
They're no big loss. It's
Yeah,
less than
so they're not-
$100, but they're not looking at the potential of what it can bring in.
not first and foremost,
Right.
if at all.
If at all, yes. And sometimes, like with that franchise thing where, you get a website and everybody thinks, oh, if I have a website, people are just going to flock to it, or even a storefront. If you have a storefront and you open the doors, you think any minute people are going to start coming to it. It's like, well, you got to let people know it's there first, right? And so what I do when somebody says they want to be an independent consultant, I take them through, like you said, that conversation first of, why do you want to do this in the first place? Let's talk about that. And what are you willing to invest? And I'm not talking about the less than $100 investment. I'm talking about what are you willing to invest of your time? And how long do you expect it to take before it becomes what you call successful, whatever, and define what success means to them.
Right. That's the biggest thing. In fact, as a Silver Fox, we've got lots of resources, and some of the smartest people I've ever known in my life as members of the group. So, I mean, that's the thing that I've picked. One of the major things I've learned from the group is, what is your success? What is your exit strategy? What is your end game? Whatever you want to call it. And I have found a vast majority of people who come for that 1 hour conversation, or just people I'm talking to at a networking deal, they have no clue. And I stopped taking clients unless they could answer that question on the first sit down. But it was amazing how many people struggled with that. And boy, that's got to be right out. But they have a thing in the Fox that one of the founders of the group, 38 years ago, still with us. And one of the first events I ever attended for the Silver Fox, and I've told this story on the air, he gave a talk to like 100 plus people. And the small business in Houston had an auditorium, I forget, anyway, downtown, 100 plus people. And he stood up on stage and he took a dollar bill, brand new dollar. He'd gotten 100 of them, passed them out. Everybody got a buck. And he took it and he said, I want you to write 3 things on that dollar bill. This is kind of like the owner of a business takes and puts the day they started, my first buck or whatever, frames it and puts it on the wall. So he's getting people into that. He says, I want you to put on there the date or year, whatever, that you want to exit your business, what you plan now, which could be 20, 30 years from now. But what the plan is right now, it can change. How much money do you expect to walk away with when you leave? Not every day, but when you leave. What is it that you need? Retirement or invest in another business, whatever. But what is your expectation for money? And then the third one, a little more cut and dry, is what kind of business are you going to sell to? Okay, is it someone who's in your industry, or is it an investment group, or are you going to pass it to your family? Okay, but think through, just pick one of those 3 and write it. So he had everybody in the audience, and this is like one of the first meetings I went to of the group. I sat in on this, and it was just interesting, and hell, it taught me so much about people, and I started using that. He later, with another gentleman, wrote a book about it, a very successful book about that concept. And because you make so many decisions as you go through the time that your business is in place, that can tie back to those 3 things. Like if you're going to sell the business next year and you've committed to that 20 years ago, and it looks like that's a good time, why would you go out and borrow a bunch of money? And so it helps guide you. But anyway, the long and the short is that was a powerful statement, and I think I try to get a new client to commit to that. And I really got to a point where if they hadn't figured that out, or wouldn't take time with me to figure it out, then you don't know where you're going.
Right.
And how are you going to get there?
And if I have somebody that comes to me and wants to be a consultant, if I don't know what their goals are, what their meaning of success is, why they're wanting to even consider doing this kind of a business, because sometimes you can feel pretty alone as a small business owner, and especially as a rep of a company that's like, well, where's all the people? It's like I feel like I'm alone out here, and yeah, Monica's available when I get on the phone with her, but the rest of the time I feel alone. And so I want to give them the tools that they need to be successful, and to mentor them and take them by the hand, if you will, or if maybe they don't need it, maybe they just need tracks to run on, and here they run with it. I have a consultant in Kansas that did that. I was a brand new consultant myself, and she said, oh, I want to do that, Monica. And I said, okay, here's what the book says. Step 1 is we do this. Step 2 says we do this, and she saw those tracks and she ran with it. And so I have other consultants that is like, okay, what's step one, Monica? And we take it step by step and we do it together.
Right. No, it's really interesting. And I mean, my whole purpose is to help people be successful. And this is one tool that I found is very important, is that evaluation, that self-evaluation of oneself about where do they want to go.
Yes, and I've also found out there's a lot of personal growth. No matter where you are when you start your business, the reason you have to look at yourself is because, you know, you may be strong in this one area, but there's these other areas that are needed in order to be to grow your business. And so your business will only grow as much as an independent consultant. It will only grow as much as you grow as a person.
Right. That's a good point. There are lots of things that come into play, many of which the new business owner, first-time business owner, has no clue. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And some people get overwhelmed, and that's what defeats them. It's not the lack of revenue or whatever, but they get overwhelmed. What is it? Wearing so many hats.
Definitely.
So, well, let me ask you, Arbonne particularly, what are some of the most rewarding aspects of being an Arbonne rep?
The most rewarding to me is when somebody comes back and tells me, Monica, this product that you shared with me, that you recommended, has just made a positive change in some aspect of their life. Whether it's one thing in particular, like, you know, the lady that says, Monica, I love this mascara. It doesn't clump up, and it's like nothing I've ever tried before. It's like, that makes me feel good, even that one little mascara. But or else the person that says, you know, Monica, I've been trying to just get a handle on life, on my health journey, and you helped me turn the corner, and now I'm on the way, and I've already lost so many pounds because that was important to me to lose some pounds, but I've lost these inches, and I can get into this whatever outfit for my next vacation or special occasion. Just things like that has made a big difference to me. And also with the consultants, it's been like, Monica, now I have this this income that I would not have had otherwise, that I can take my family on this whatever trip that I've always wanted to do, or this other function, and it's like, that made this possible. The part that I haven't personally felt, but I've seen and I see it with other people and other consultants in the Arbonne industry, is that it's not all small chump change. It is not a $500 a month, which $500 a month can make a big difference in a family's life. But I've seen other people that have they have been able to make thousands of dollars difference in other people's life. They not only were able to help their family, but they've been able to bless a lot of other families and whatever their charity is, that they've been able to contribute to that, where without Arbonne they wouldn't have been able to do that.
Right. That's, to me, one of the big, again, I know the low entry point as far as the investment in dollars and cents, but that's one of the big, in my opinion, big benefits of, if you're going to go in business and you feel you can do it as an independent rep, then the idea is that there's a lot of great reward potential there. That monetary, yes, but there are a lot of other rewards. Well, we're running out of time today, but I got one final question, and a question that we address a lot here, but everybody seems to offer something new. What advice do you have for others interested in starting their own home-based business? What would be something you could, a gem or a nugget or whatever they call it today, that advice that you would share with someone who's considering going into business?
To put it in a nutshell, I would say take a look at the company that's well established, and don't fall for the, here, start with the ground floor, we're brand new, and boy, oh boy, are we going to really make it. Because the established companies have been through the hard times that you and I have seen over the economic cycle of America and the world. And so you want a company that has already gone through some of those hard times. So you want to look at their compensation plan and make sure it's a culture that is positive and mentoring, and not one that's, dog eat dog. You want one that's that it's in it for you. And what I love is Arbonne has checked all the plus boxes, And I invite anybody that wants to consider that. It's like, let's have a conversation.
Well, I think you make an excellent point. And people, when you go into business with someone as an independent rep, it's just another form of a partnership. So evaluate your partner well.
Yes.
That's just good advice. I've made money with and without partners, but I had a lot more fun when I had a partner. And I've had a bad partner in one business, the first one I did. But I learned a lot, and the next time I had a partner, I made more money than I ever dreamed that we would make together. So it works, but you are gaining a partner, and it's important to really evaluate those people. Monica, if someone wants to get in touch, got a question for you about Arbonne or just about business in general, what is the best way for them to do that?
Well, I have a business Facebook page that they can put a message out there to me. They don't have to be my quote-unquote Facebook friend to be able to send me a message. There's one way. And also I have a LinkedIn account. I don't look at that one quite so often, but so I'd say probably through Facebook would be the best way to get a hold of me.
Now, your Facebook page, what's the name?
It's my name, Monica Fuss, Arbonne Independent Consultant.
Okay. So if you want to talk to Monica, I think she's very willing, like myself, to help anybody evaluate where they need to go, and perhaps in her case provide you with information on a company that can very well help you do that in a successful way.
And if you're unalignable, you can find me there. Just look up my name, Monica Fuss.
Come join us at a networking event, no doubt about it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for taking the time to listen to today's show. Thank you, Monica. I think we've got a lot more that we can talk about. Maybe in the future you'll come back and we can dig into some of these other topics or dig a little deeper into the business concept. Everyone listening, please put a note on your calendar next week, 11 a.m. Monday. We're here. We'll have another edition of the Weekly Business Hour. And look for a video podcast of today's program in the next day or so. It'll be posted on the Weekly Business Hour page on Facebook, YouTube, all over social media, or on irlonestar.com. The studio here has, and you can re-listen, or gosh, I'd love it if you pass it on to someone who's in business, and hopefully they would see the value of taking time to listen to our great conversations that we're blessed with local business people, experts, every bit of it meant to help you be more successful in your business. And I love to close every week with this. Until next week, stay engaged and always keep your focus on what counts in your business. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thanks, Rick.